So you're tired of seeing the same old rod of Kepelecki builds 10 times a day, huh? Or perhaps you're simply a man of culture that enjoys a fine build. Either way, I've got you covered. Because this is the Muhammad Ali of Spiritborn builds, and it's speed running every content that you could possibly imagine. It's by far the most fun build I've played this season, hitting enemies a gazillion times per second, flying across the map, and it's a goddamn Jaguar build. Or what do you say, Arnie? Is this a damn fun build?
I'm getting the feeling of coming, I'm getting the feeling of coming at home, I'm getting the feeling of coming, so I'm coming day and night.
Fuck's sake, man. Not only that though, but basically anything you want from the Rod of Kepelecki builds, this one can do it too. Apart from hitting for quintillions, of course, we'll leave that to the bird-shitting builds. But trillions? No problemo. I'm providing you with a few different options here in the planner, a basic version that works for everyone, a speed blaster that I'm currently running, and a pushing variant in case you enjoy that for some fucking reason. I don't judge you, but get some help. But in any way, let's start with the basics. And we first have trash. Not that kind of thrash, though. Not that one either. Yes, that one. What's cool about this spell is that it both dashes you to targets, making you effectively fast as fuck boy, and it also unleashes its third attack every time we attack within 1.5 seconds. And that's no problem at all. You then get these spinning ball sacks dealing double the damage. We then combine this third attack with the Superzontech weapon. Since we're always blasting out the third attack, this in turn triples our attacks and grants it this cool fucking look. This also means that this unique is required to actually deal damage with this build, seeing as it instantly triples your damage along with doubling it twice again from the other bonuses. Pretty strong, I must say. But it's also the only item that is required to play the build, which is lovely. Oh, and by the way, this triple GA weapon cost me about 1 billion gold, making it basically free in the current economy.
Nice.
All right. And then we have some additional lovely skills. There are only 2 skills that are required for every setup that we're rocking. The other you can swap around depending on your gear and playstyle. We first have Armored Hide. This is how we generate our resolve stacks, which we combine with the interdiction aspect and the redirected force for massive amounts of crit damage. The other mandatory skill, or, well, it's not really mandatory, but it sure makes the build feels a whole lot better, is the Hunter. Stacking enough cooldown reduction, you can keep using this spell between each pack of enemies, which is a huge quality of life. For the other skills, shit turns interesting. In what I deem to be the most fun setup, I'm rocking Ravager and Vortex. This is a pretty cool setup, because when combined with the Fists of Fate and Wildfire, you can instantly reset all of your cooldowns as long as you pull in enough enemies and get those lucky hits going. This does, however, require a Shaco and more than 3 brain cells, because we are also rocking Unyielding Aspect and we want to keep that up permanently. In this setup, you would do it with Armored Hide, but if you fuck up, then you don't have enough cooldown reduction. Sad times. But that's easily solved, as in the other setups you would just slap Gorilla smash onto your bars and proc Unyielding Aspect every 3 seconds that way. Or just throw it in the fucking trash and slap on another aspect. I don't give a shit, really. The last skill we have on our bars is Counterattack. This just sits here, looking pretty, and grants us 30% crit damage. And again, you can swap this one if you want to rock another skill as well. But it brings us consistent damage, and it's one less button to press. And why do you not want to press it, Mr. Big Dick Senpai? Well, shit, because it grants us 100% dodge, meaning we don't block for our redirected force aspect, which in turn means sad times for our damage. Alright, so that's the skills. I also want to talk a bit about the Spirit Hall because that's an important one. A large bulk of our damage comes from the Jaguar main hall. This double dips like crazy, and in this build, we are hitting enemies for a gazillion times per second, meaning we are able to proc this thing like crazy, especially if you get enough attack speed, because you can get close to 200% attack speed bonus in this build. And for the dogshit newbies, these are the 2 attack speed buckets in the game. You can get 100% in each, for a total of 200% attack speed bonus. More on that later though, because it's time to check out some gear and aspects already. Starting us right off, I'm rocking Shaco in this particular setup. For all the other setups though, you're going to want this. The aspect you choose then depends on how much armor you are able to stack up, because you can get a total of 1500 weapon damage from the unyielding aspect. To see how much you have currently, just multiply the aspect roll with your current armor. For me, I would need a total of 5,300 to get capped, which I don't have because my gear is shit. If I had it, I would be constantly hitting for trillions. If you have that much armor though without disobedience, then you can use the hectic aspect of concussive strikes. Next up, we have the chest. Having the Shroud of False Death is a massive quality of life upgrade, as it solves all of the Paragon requirements and grants us some skill points that we can't grab otherwise. But when it comes to DPS, it's pretty similar to this one. For Prio on this, you're going to stack as much health as possible so we can abuse the living hell out of the bugged Viscous Shield legendary node that is currently uncapped and fucks up the entire class balance. Just lovely. Next, we have the gloves. I'm only using the Feisters in this particular setup due to it doubling our lucky hit, and in turn grants a buttload of cooldown reduction from Wildfire. It's a pretty substantial DPS loss though, as it has no max life, and we are losing out on an aspect. But it's fun as hell to use LOL, cooldown reduction goes BRR. For the Pantaloonies, these would be perfect if they had more GA on them. The interdiction aspect is also massive when combined with the redirected force. Unfortunately though, getting a max aspect costs 50 billion gold, and I've spent obols from 1,000 pit runs or so without getting it upgraded. Great fun, honestly, not at all tilted. In any way, here's another cool combination. Here we have the Exulke combination to trigger Earthen Bulwark. A massive problem with this build compared to the Rod of Kepeleke builds is that we can't just spend resources to trigger Earthen Bulwark every second. Instead, we actually need to use our brains. So one option would be to cast the same non-channeled skill 3 times until we get our Earthen Bulwark. But this is slow as fuck, and only grants us the barrier roughly 75% of our run. But if we instead combine that rune with the Necromancer rune and use that to invoke more offerings, then we can keep the barrier up permanently, especially with enough attack speed. A pretty fun and cool combo. We also want to temper max resolve stacks or resilient here, of course. 2 resilient tempers and 2 max resolve tempers are solid for big damn. Next, we have the sneakers. It's important that you temper thrash size somewhere and try to combine that with 120% barrier generation. The former is so we actually hit stuff, and the latter to make sure that every bulwark we generate fully fills up our barrier. I'd also like to swap out the dex here for a GA armor, but it is what it is. In any way, slap on the duelist aspect for some massive DPS. Alright, and then we get to the interesting stuff. The Sepazon tech is just massive, not unlike something else. My massive ego, that is. Here we want to Prio the chance to deal double damage. Follow through is also a great passive, but it's not as strong as dealing double damage. For the amulet, this is where you can get some truly massive damage. Ideally, you would replace crit chance here for potent ranks, as it would boost my damage like crazy. But I didn't go for that because I need the crit chance, and that's due to us not dealing any damage at all when we don't crit. I'm currently rocking 74% and an additional 20 from Mirage when I dodge. But potent and even furnace are just fucking bonkers, man. You then grab Redirected Force and get the hell out of there to the rings. This is where you slap on the Unyielding Aspect and Moonrise, along with trying to get as many useful stats as possible. Ideally, max life, crit chance, and some attack speed or dex. Well, damn, gear and aspects are now done. Let's see what's going on with the Spirit Hall. We already talked about this. Double Jaguar all the way, baby. The primary hall just goes harder and harder, and I've seen hits upwards of 1 trillion with this extremely mid-gear. You can easily get this to consistently hit for trillions, and then if you combine that with the Fell's Soothsayer's aspect that also double dips like crazy, then you can probably push the damage upwards of quadrillions if you get truly decked out. Pretty solid, I must say. Alright, my friends, what do you say we take a look at the skill tree then? Yeah, I think so. But first, drop a goddamn sub, man. Because I've drop-kicked non-subscribers in the balls before, and I'm not afraid to do it again. Starting us right off, Thrash is the name of the game here, so we're decking it out, and combining that with some lovely follow-through damage bonuses that is, of course, getting doubled. We then grab Vortex if you're using it, along with some massive damage multipliers that are just absolutely lovely, and then we have Ravager that I'm using for more lucky hits for the cooldown reductions, along with more main Spirit Hall double dipping. Next we go for some defensives, or else we'll fucking die El Mao. Auspicious is also a lovely passive here because if you're moving, then you are not blasting. And if you are not blasting, then Earthen Bulwark has a chance to drop. And then we have this as backup. We also have Armored Hide here, which is our only source of gorilla skill in this particular setup, and Concussive Stomp if you're playing any of the other setups. Counterattack is also nice, simply for the 30% damage bonus. After that, we have the best passive in the game, Resilient, along with the second best passive in the game, Potent. In the ultimate tree, we're grabbing the Hunter, which I managed to get down to 10 seconds along with resetting whenever shit dies. Using the Shroud is also lovely, as we get these lovely quality of life upgrades right here. And we can't forget these buffs either, granting a humongous damage bonus. We then finish it off with Adaptive Stances. This is actually huge for our damage. For starters, the 30% attack speed is in the second attack speed bucket, so it grants attack speed even if we get 100% on our gear. And also the 50% core stats is actually bonkers. Partially for the damage via dexterity, but it also grants us resistances and solves the rest of the crit chance. Having this along with Mirage is what grants me 100% crit chance when I'm currently only at 75%. Pretty awesome, huh? Damn right, my friends. Hey, will you look at that? We successfully completed the skill tree, and just in time, seeing as it's already Perragon fucking clock, and you know it, man or woman. The goal here is simple: go for as much big schlong damage as possible. I'm currently at Paragon 275, so I'm at a point where I got all the important nodes. But if you're a dogshit gamer that rather spends time with your kids and family than game all day long, then this is the priority for you. Prio 1 is all the glyphs and legendary nodes. Prio 2 is max life everywhere. And Prio 3 is attack speed nodes, armor nodes, and barrier generation nodes. If you manage to get these, then you've basically got everything you need. The rest of the nodes is just about boosting the glyphs and grabbing as much dexterity and rare nodes as possible, pretty much. And to start things off, we have Wildfire. We use this to reset our cooldowns. And again, this is lucky hit-based. So if you're playing with Fists of Fate and Ravager, then you're getting massive value from this one. And if you don't, then it's still decent. Next we go for Sapping for Big Dam and Canny for more Big Dam. We also have some insane attack speed and max life nodes here, which we appreciate for sure. Next we go for Convergence and Socket Headhunter. This is a great place to spend some spare nodes for more dexterity as the glyph doubles their values. After that, we grab Viscous Shield, which basically carries every Cringeborn build in the game, and Socket Spirit with ease for Big Damn. This is another good place to spend your spare points, seeing as it both utilizes dex and grants a decent enough crit damage per point. Down here, we also have a bunch of barrier generation, helping you out with that 120% barrier generation bonus. We then fuck off from there to grab Revealing and finish it all off with Colossal, granting yet another multiplier per max resolve stack. Pretty damn nice, I must say. Well shit, Perragons complete. Let's waste no time and go get heckin' good. For the Speed Demon variant, that in my opinion is the most fun, you're jumping around and pressing Vortex to gather up enemies. When you've done this, you are free to press all of your buttons. Since Armored Hide is your gorilla skill for Unyielding Aspect here, you want to make sure you press this each time it's up. Top this off by punching the Ravager button as hard as possible, as it will boost the amount of lucky hits you get for the cooldown reduction we talked about earlier via the Wildfire Glyph. You should then be able to instantly reset your cooldowns, and you can follow that up by leaping to the next pack of enemies, gather them up, and pressing your cooldowns. Insanely fun, smooth, and Arnie loves it. And here's a quick summary. If you're playing any of the other setups, then you in turn have a lot less cooldown reduction, and you need to use the Gorilla Smash ability to proc the Unyielding Aspect. You'll then use this every 3 seconds. What you need to be aware of, though, is that Gorilla Smash in turn also punches enemies away from you, so rather use it before you Vortex, or else you'll just punch them away from it LOL. But other than that, you're just pressing all of your buttons on cooldown and hold down Thrash. Do all of this, and you shall succeed at this game faster than I can say ballsack.